We're here to talk about the real estate market in Silicon Valley, then the Greater Bay Area, week number 6. We'll come back to all of this at the end. I'm Richard Calhoun with Creekside Realty, working with buyers or sellers here in Silicon Valley. Here's our first data slide. What this is doing is it's comparing the active inventory compared to the last 10 years inventory at the same time of the year. I use a real estate calendar year, which starts on March the 1st, jumps forward 7 days at a time, always looking in the rearview mirror for 5 weeks. When we get to February 20th, we jump forward 8 days or 9 days to get to March 1st. And this year it's going to be 9 days to get to March 1st because of the leap year. Basically, what this is saying is inventory is a little bit on the light side, except for in San Mateo County, you're right at 100%. Alameda County is at 67%. I only have countywide data for the first 4 slides. Santa Clara County varies from about 60% to about 91%. Now we're flipping over and looking at the offers. This is looking at the number of offers accepted in the past 5 weeks compared to the median for the past 10 years. You can see Santa Clara County is on the low side, which would tend to be a cool marketplace, which is why everything is blue in color. Alameda County is 75%. San Mateo County is roughly 60% to 90%. There's quite a bit of variation. The bluer the color, like down here in Saratoga, Las Gatos, with only 53%, it's one of the least number of offers compared to what it typically gets at this time of the year. There is the impact of the Super Bowl, but this is the pattern we've had for the last several weeks, if not a year now, is inventory has been less than normal, offers have been less than normal, yielding a DUI compared to normal of just about normal. In Santa Clara County, you're basically on the low side of 100%, which is a faster marketplace, which is why the red color favoring the seller. San Mateo County, basically across the board, is above 100%. Foster City is a very small area that has very few transactions, so the data is statistically fluctuates an awful lot and is almost meaningless, and that's why it's pulled out by itself. Is you don't want an area to come in and out of the marketplace impacting the data for the surrounding areas like Redwood City. And you can see Alameda County is sitting there at 86%. And those we have to compare to the 10-year median because each geographical area is dramatically different in size. It can vary from maybe as many as 200 in some of my larger micro market areas to as few as probably about 5 in Foster City. A huge change, so you can't just look at the raw inventory or the raw number of sales in a given week, which is why I compare it to the 10-year median. Now with the days of unsold inventory, this is the ratio between the supply and demand. So now the size of a micro market area doesn't matter because it impacts both the number of properties available as well as the number of offers accepted in the past 5 weeks. You can see that Santa Clara County is red in color. Pretty much every area is under 3 weeks. The exception is Saratoga, Las Gatos at 54 days and Los Altos, Palo Alto at 38. You jump up into San Mateo County and the expense varies are at 116 days and Coast is at 86, both very slow marketplaces, which is why they're blue in color. Redwood City is sort of balanced at 42. The Bay Cities, North San Mateo County and Foster City are all favoring the seller with less than about 3 weeks of inventory or just about 3 weeks of inventory. You go over into Alameda County and it's a little bit more like Santa Clara County. A lot of the areas just under 3 weeks of inventory. Union City and Newark are only at 1 week of inventory. But then you do have areas like San Leandro, San Leandro, Hayward, Oakland, Berkeley, and Alameda that are all above a month of inventory. And Oakland is actually sitting at 2 months. Now, this is the first data slide that's really fairly easy to grasp with no technical analysis. It's simply how long is the long typical seller taking to sell their property? Now, I don't count the sellers that aren't successful. So the sellers that come on the market with pie in the sky number and never sell, they're not in this. But what is the long typical successful seller taking to sell their property? You can see in Santa Clara County, a lot of the areas are just around a week and a half. Yes, you have some areas like the affordable areas, Central, East, and South San Jose at 29 days and South County at 40 days. And one of the things that you'll start noticing is there are areas that tend to be slower. South County and Saratoga, Las Gatos are 2 micro markets in Santa Clara County that are traditionally the slower, and they're starting to slow down a little bit, which is just getting us back to a normal marketplace. You can see Los Altos and Palo Alto was at 14 days. So it's not the expense of Saratoga and Los Gatos. It's something about the market where it's always a little slower. And basically, in my opinion, it's up against the Los Gatos Mountains. Everybody's got to commute out of there north. So the commute is a little more ugly, just sort of like going out into Alameda County. The commute is longer and not as nice, and therefore prices are more affordable. And that is shifting a little bit with the pandemic. Move on to the Redwood City, San Mateo County area. And again, here it's just a little bit slower than Santa Clara County at just over 2 weeks. There is clearly the exception of the coast, which is basically at 7 weeks. What's interesting though is they look fairly similar in a lot of ways, but San Mateo County is usually outperforming Santa Clara. It's usually got a lower days on marketplace, and now Santa Clara has lower than San Mateo County. Jump down to Alameda County, and Alameda County is more like Santa Clara County, with a lot of areas at around 1 to 3 weeks of time to sell their property. Moving on, and this is fairly unique to my data set, it's what is the seller's ask price reductions, and it's an average. So we're looking at all the sellers to combine how much they're reducing their price. And yes, sellers aren't getting on the market and reducing their price 0.5%. What it turns out to be is a very small percentage of the marketplace, usually around 10%, is taking fairly significant price reductions, because the vast majority of the sellers are coming on and selling before they even have time to do a price adjustment. And that's why these numbers are so small. It's not that sellers are taking real small reductions. It's the vast majority aren't taking any price reductions at all. You do have times like in Fremont where you actually have price increases. That happens if an offer comes in above asking price and that particular listing agent seller combination feel uncomfortable having the ask price below the sale price. So they increase the offer price, the asking price, to the accepted sales price after the offer comes in. And that's how you have that happen. Sometimes there are typographical errors that I don't catch. I catch an awful lot of them. Someone enters a property in it at 1 million and they meant 1,000,001 and they increase it. I tend to try to flag those and look at how quickly the price adjustment was done. If it was done within 24 hours, I assume it was a typo and just update the original list price. The vast majority of these are list price increases that have occurred basically a week after the property's been listed. You can see very small price adjustments. You can see it's a what I call a tight metric. The average is going up 0.5% or down 1/4. I call that a red hot marketplace. When it's between 1% and 5%, it's an ice cold marketplace, and between 1.75%, it's a balanced marketplace. So you can see a lot of Santa Clara County is in that 1/4 to 3/4 price range and basically a balanced marketplace. You go sort of up on the peninsula and it's a little bit more blue in color. You go back into Alameda County and it's more like Santa Clara County with the exception of Oakland. This is how commoner sellers ask price reductions. So this gets into what I was talking about, where in Santa Clara County, basically a good portion of the area, 5% of the sellers reducing, and in the more affordable areas, 15% of the sellers reducing. You go into San Mateo County, and this is sort of surprising. There's almost no price reductions. But part of why that's happening right now is there's very little inventory over the end of the year. So the inventory that's coming on the market and is on the market right now has all been listed since the first of the year, or the vast majority of it has been. And so the sellers really haven't had time to take their price reductions. And that's one of the reasons these numbers are particularly tight today. But you can see that Fremont area has got the reddest color, and you can see Saratoga Los Gatos has the bluest color. That means they're taking the largest price reductions. It's 20%, almost 25%. 1 in 4 sellers are taking a price reduction in Saratoga Los Gatos, and compare that to Milpitas, where only 1 in 20 sellers are taking a price reduction. Now we're flipping over and looking at what the buyers do. The huge disadvantage of this metric is you have to wait for escrows to close to know what the sale price is. And so there's about a 5-6 week delay in getting this information. Yes, it is current information, but it's based on closings where market conditions are based on offers accepted. You can see San Mateo County coast sellers are taking a 4.5% price reduction, which is pretty significant. The next most significant is Foster City at 2.4%. Again, a very small micro market area. But then you have areas like Berkeley, Alameda, or Milpitas, Santa Teresa, Blossom Valley, or even Campbell, Cambrian, where you're basically having 7% overbids. So you're basically going from a 4.5% underbid, reducing the price to 95.5% to a 7% paying above. So offering the seller 107%. And these are averages. So your median and your total distribution is going to be different. And we will look at the distribution curves of these later. Now, here's the frequency of overbidding. You can see in the heart of Silicon Valley, basically 70% of your sellers are getting more than their asking price. In those affordable areas, it's closer to 50 and 35%. San Mateo County is more around the third to 50% of the sellers getting more than their asking price. And Alameda County is coming in somewhere around 65%. And, you know, there is variations in each one of the counties. Now we're looking at appreciation since the last 9 months of 2015. What I did here is I was looking for a long, contiguous time period where prices were relatively stable and looking at what those prices are then compared to what they are now. You can see that Santa Clara County, sort of the southern east portion of it, has had a fairly solid appreciation. So has the eastern portion of Alameda County had a fairly significant appreciation. Livermore right now is a little bit low at 64% when you compare it to their neighbor of Pleasanton of 94 or Fremont of 71, Union City 94. So Dublin and Castro Valley has been doing high. I think this is a statistical fluctuation just because of the time of the year we're in. And you got to take it with a grain of salt. So even though I'm using a 5-week period to try to get rid of these, we're seeing some of that come up right now. You can see in the San Mateo County, it's some of the coolest areas with only a 33% appreciation. So your appreciation's gone from an all-time low down here in Oakland and Berkeley at 25%, 33% in a good portion of San Mateo County, to a high of almost 90% in Santa Clara County, and then a high approaching 100% in Pleasanton, almost a doubling of the purchase price, the median value, since the last 9 months of 2015. Instead of just following the median price, which is the middle number here, I also follow what I call the 10 percentile and the 90 percentile, the biggest and the smallest amount that you can reasonably expect to find. You know that 80% of the homes that are available are between this 864,000 and the 1.6 million price range, with 40% being between the 860,000 and 1.2 million, and then 40% being between 1.2 million and 1.6 million. So here's a summary of the information we went over. The yellow are an indication of market conditions. The reason active and offers are not is that only tells you half the story. We have to get into the DUI in order to start getting market conditions. So when you compare the DUI compared to the 10-year median, that is market conditions where you're having 150, 180% of the normal. That's a slower marketplace. DUI is a market indicator because it's just this ratio in that own micro marketplace. Time on the marketplace for the successful seller is an indication of how quickly and how successful sellers are being. So again, an indicator of the marketplace. Sellers ask price reductions, same concept. Tells you what the market's doing because it tells you how large the magnitude of the price adjustment sellers are doing. The frequency tells you how common is the seller's price reductions. The least common, the hotter the marketplace, because the price reductions are usually on reductions, not always though, and that's why I use the word adjustments. Then you flip over and look at overbidding. The drawback of these last two is you got to wait for that escrows to close to get the sale price. But again, it's an indication of where the market was 5 or 6 weeks ago. So it's mostly these first 5 columns that really tell you what the market's doing right now. To the 6th and 7th give you an idea where the market's done. And then appreciation and sell price and monthly payments have nothing to do with the current market conditions. The concept here is you can either find your monthly payment range, your purchase price range, or the geographical area you want on the left, and look at what the market conditions are in your micro market area. There's 20 areas in Silicon Valley made up of Santa Clara, San Mateo, and Alameda County. Now we're moving on and we're putting all of those 20 micro market areas in a blender and seeing what's happening. And now your inventory is the purple line. So inventory right now is about 68% of where you'd expect it to be. Your offers accepted is somewhere around 76%. That gives you a days of unsold inventory of around 82% of where you'd expect it to be. The inventory is way less, the offers are way less, but the offers are above the inventory, which gives you a DUI below where you'd expect the DUI to be. You'd expect all three of these indicators, metrics, to be right on the black horizontal line if they were having an absolute typical year. This to me is one of the key takeaways that the media has been pretty silent on, but they are starting to talk about it, is simply the lack of inventory. We've only sold 1,314 transactions, and these are offers accepted. Our previous record low was basically 1,600 at 1,599. We're only selling 82% of our previous 25-year record low. We're just not selling the inventory, but we also don't have the inventory, but we would be selling more if the demand was there because we've had a faster DUI, and the DUI is the supply-demand balance. Here's the payments. So I'm looking at interest rates based on an 80% loan, jumbo money, national average published by the Federal Reserve Bank, and then the 10 percentile price down here for Silicon Valley is somewhere around 6,000. The median is somewhere around 11,000, and the 90% priced home is somewhere around $25,000. Now what we're doing is looking at the price reductions that the sellers are doing, and it's really price adjustments. As the graph goes up and to the right, the market's improving because fewer sellers are taking less price reductions. The purple line is the current line, so that's where we are right now. But we're going to start off a year ago, and we're just going to step through these, and you can see how rapidly it goes up. Right there 8 months ago was the peak, and then it bounced around a little bit, and then it cooled off. And then it sort of had this fall plateau. And then right about now, it's going to turn around and start going up. There you go. So the last 3 weeks have been going up. And the purple line is the current week. The green dotted line is looking forward to comparing to the data on Monday. Because my calendar is a fiscal year, a real estate year starting on March 1st, it ended on Tuesday, data through midnight Tuesday. I want you to give you data through midnight on Friday, and that's what this green line is. But because we don't have the full week of data, it's not really an apples and apples comparisons, but it's an indication that the price reductions from the current, the last full week, which is comparing through Tuesday night at midnight, is most likely going to go up because, and you don't know because you're adding in Saturday data, Sunday data, Monday data, Tuesday data to find out where this line is really going. But more than likely, it will be significantly higher than the purple line. And it's noteworthy that this green line is already the peak of last year. Now we're looking at overbidding. So this is what the buyers do when they come in with their overbid. Now, this is up and to the right is an improving marketplace. So up this direction, getting close to the red line. The red line is the best week we ever had, and that was March 29th of 2022. So the 5 weeks before that, so basically the month of March and the last week in February, was our most aggressive overbidding that we've seen in Silicon Valley in the last 25 years. Our least aggressive overbidding was shortly after the World Trade Center, November 30th of 2001. We had the World Trade Center where everybody was numb, and then we had Thanksgiving, and then every holiday it negatively impacts real estate. And then right after that, we got into the nesting urge and surge that we had later in 2002. So here's the data. You can see the climb. There's the peak. A little bit more stable, but you can see the drift down in the fall. And now it's going to just turn around, I think, right there, and it's gone up just the last 2 weeks. So if we go back, right there's the bottom. 3 weeks ago is the bottom. 2 weeks ago is sort of at the bottom also. So 3 weeks ago was the bottom. There's 1 week ago, and there's the plus 1 week, which is through Tuesday. So the market has turned around more than 5 weeks ago now, and those turnaround market conditions are starting to have positive impact, as you would expect at this time of the year, on the amount of overbidding. Here's looking at the active inventory in the purple line. One of the things that's unusual that I need to point out is starting in January 1st of 2023, I almost doubled the x-axis so you can see what's happening. So from 2014, way over on the left-hand side, all the way up through 2023, you have a compressed axis so you can see the 10-year history of what the market does, and you start seeing the trend. And now the purple line is where the current data is. The gray line is where you'd expect the market to be. The red line is where you'd expect the market to be if it was a hot marketplace, and the blue line is a cool marketplace. So the purple is below the red. So we have less inventory now than you'd expect even in a hot marketplace. Here it is on a percentage basis. Now I've taken that gray line and straightened it out, and then what percent of the current inventory is compared to normal. Right now you can see that we have something like 68% of the inventory you'd expect to have at this time of the year. Here's the same concept with the number of offers, but here the offers are below where you'd expect it to be and below where you'd expect it to be in a cold marketplace. Again, I'm going to stretch out this gray line and make that gray line a straight, and then plot it. You can see that we went way down just last week, and now we're back up to around 76% of the number of offers that you'd expect to have. Here's your days months sold inventory, and again, same concept, but now you're pretty close to the gray line. You're a little bit on the red side or a little bit on the hot side of a typical marketplace. So the market's a little faster than it typically has been for the last 10 years. And the last 10 years have been hot marketplaces. So we're having a hot marketplace. Here you're seeing it, we're a little bit below the typical line, and we're down into the hot category with about 85%, maybe 83% of the DUI you want. A low DUI is a faster marketplace. Here's the seller time on the marketplace. So sellers are selling close to the typical, but definitely on below the typical. So they're selling more rapidly than you typically would expect for this time of the year. And here you can see they're only taking about 80% of the time that they typically do. So if you take 10 days normally, now you're taking 8 days, and each micro market area is different. Here's your ask price reductions. You can see that the typical line is up here, the gray, the data is between the typical and the cool. So we're getting more price reductions than we typically do, but quite a bit less price reductions than you'd expect in a cool marketplace. And that's where you are. You're getting up here. We're somewhere around, what would it be, 99.8%. So that means only 0.2% price reductions. And again, that's not sellers taking 0.2 of a price reduction. It's 10% of the sellers taking a 2% price reduction, for example. Here, we're flipping over and doing something a little different. Because so few sellers take price reductions, it's not uncommon to see only 5% of the sellers doing a price reduction. I'm now looking at what the sellers that are taking the biggest 10% price reduction are doing. And here it's very close to the typical. It's a little bit below. Here you can see you're a little bit more of the cool end. Sellers are taking a little bit more price reductions than they typically do. Here's the frequency of the price reductions. So the frequency is right on the median. And there you can see it. We're pretty darn close here. And so that means that the sellers are taking the price reductions at their normal rate, but they're taking bigger price reductions than they typically do. Here's your average overbids. Buyers are coming in right on top of typical. The gray line is typical. And here you stretch it out, and you can see you're just slightly above the gray line, but very close to it. The frequency of overbidding, same concept, right on the gray line, following the gray line for the last couple of weeks, basically right on both sides of the gray line. Here's the sold price. The sloped blue line is sort of the long-term appreciation. You can see there's a dip down at the end of every single year. Even years where we're on fire, you sort of have a U-shaped dip, but it's very pronounced. I don't believe this is the actual loss in value. I believe this is the type of properties they're selling. When you start looking at it, smaller homes in more affordable areas tend to make up a larger portion of the market share at the end of the year. And I think that's what explains this dip every year. Here now we're looking at the three counties that make up Santa Clara County. We're looking at San Mateo County in the orange. We're looking at Santa Clara County in the blue and Alameda County in the gray. This is the active inventory, and you can compare where they normally is, so you can see the lack of inventory. Offers accepted, the same concept. You can see the numbers going up, but it goes up dramatically at this time of the year. But again, it's down from where it typically is. Here's your DUI. Your DUI is normally racing down. You just come back to look at the last year. And again, a word of caution, because I've expanded out my x-axis starting in 2023, you can't compare the slope of the line before 2023 to after 2023. You just can see the pattern. You basically have to mentally shrink these slopes in half. So the steepness of the slope is right where you'd expect it to be. Here's marketing time on it. And again, you can compare to just last year. This is the time of the year when marketing time comes skyrocketing down, dropping like a lead balloon, and it will rapidly turn around and plateau out at some point. Here's the magnitude of seller price reductions in the three counties. Santa Clara County is taking the least. San Mateo County is taking the most. Here's the frequency of price reductions. They're basically right on top of one another, all just at 10% of the sellers taking a price reduction. That means 90% of the sellers are not doing price adjustments. Here's the buyers coming in, and now you do have a little bit of separation. Alameda County has the most bidding, and this is the average. Santa Clara County is second, and San Mateo County has the least amount of overbidding at just over 2%. Frequency of overbidding, same order. San Mateo County is about 45% of the sellers are getting more than their asking price. Santa Clara County is at about 57%, and Alameda County is at about 62% of the sellers getting more than their asking price. Here's the appreciation. Silicon Valley has had the most appreciation at basically 80% appreciation. San Mateo County is currently coming in at second with about 62% appreciation. And in last place, which is a little surprising, Alameda County is only at about a 50% appreciation. Here's the price long-term. This is on log paper. You can see the long-term period. All these people that would have purchased in Alameda County are paid a higher price than their property would go for right now based on the median price. That is probably a larger sample size, because I believe at this time of the year, the prices are artificially low because more affordable, smaller homes are selling. But again, you can see that San Mateo County has probably one of the least amount of people that would be potentially upside down. I would say the order is San Mateo County having the least, Santa Clara County the next, and Alameda County has the most. Here's the same information, but on regular paper for those that prefer. Here's your monthly payment in the same order, with San Mateo County on top and Alameda County being the most affordable. Here's the raw numbers for those that look at it. You've broken down by each of the three counties as well as the county as a whole. The 20% increases in inventory that we've been seeing the previous 2 weeks has dropped to about 10%. And I expect that to drop again, because now we're building up past the year, so you don't have a number very close to zero. Active inventory dropped fairly significantly in Santa Clara County, but look at the DUI. I consider a 5-day change to be significant. You had a 26-day change in Santa Clara County. You had a 38-day change drop in San Mateo County. And that's why you look at multiple data points. Just because of the way the real estate market works, with sellers flooding the marketplace, all those new properties coming on the market are the properties that tend to sell quickly. So your number of offers go way up, eating up your inventory. And so you end up with a lot of offers with not much inventory. Now we leave Silicon Valley alone and look at the Greater Bay Area, which is 5 regions. One of those 5 regions is Silicon Valley. Then you have the cities at San Francisco and Marin. You have the North Bay, you have the Central Valley, and you have the Central Coast. Here are the numbers for those that want to start off in the reverse order. And you pick whatever metric you think is the most valuable, and then we'll go through it. We're plotting the 5 regions. Silicon Valley is in the purple. So Silicon Valley has less inventory than it typically does, but about the same ratio and actually a little bit higher ratio than either the Central Valley or the North Bay. The Central Valley and the North Bay have had a larger reduction in active inventory because you'd expect the number to be up here somewhere, and instead it's here. So basically, another way of saying it, the vertical separation between Santa Clara County and North Bay and Central Valley is less there than it was back over here. San Mateo County and Central Coast are also more like Santa Clara County. So the biggest reduction in inventory has been in the affordable areas of the North Bay and the Central Valley. Here's looking at the number of offers accepted. You can see the three areas now are right on top of one another as far as the number of offers. San Mateo County and Central Coast are smaller geographical area with fewer sales, and that's why you can't compare either active inventory or offers across the board because it depends on the size of the micro market area being considered. Days on unsold inventory, now it's a ratio now, so now it is fair game. Silicon Valley is the fastest. Central Coast is the slowest, which is not uncommon. You can see the long-term back here. Silicon Valley's been almost always at the bottom, and Central Coast, the blue line's almost always been at the top. The other three are in between, and that's exactly what you got now. Here's time on the marketplace. Silicon Valley is the quickest. Here you have the cities being the slowest, and that's a change because if you go back here, the cities was definitely buried in it with Central Coast being the slowest, which corresponds with days of unsold inventory. But recently, the cities has now taken over and says we're going to be the slowest area, slower than the Central Coast, because the blue is the Central Coast. And that's one of the things you should be looking for is shifts in the data from long term. And that's why I think it's important to have the long-term data up here. Right off the bat here, you can see the purple's sort of on the top, purple's on the top. You can see blues on the bottom. Blues on the bottom basically through the end of last year, and now orange, the cities, San Francisco Marin is on the bottom. Frequency of sellers, price reductions, you can see Silicon Valley is always on the bottom. You can see the others are pretty grouped together, but Central Valley and Central Coast were up together. But now all four other regions are grouped right on top of one another. So again, a little bit of a shift. Here's the magnitude of overbidding. Silicon Valley has the most overbidding at 4%, followed by the cities at 2%, North Bay in the gray at 100%. The Central Valley at just under 100%, and Central Coast at about 99% of the ask price. So buyers are actually coming in under ask price in Central Coast areas, which is Monterey and Santa Cruz. Here's the frequency of overbidding. So in Santa Cruz and Monterey, it's the least, the most in Silicon Valley, the other three pretty close together. Total appreciation. Look at the cities being impacted by the pandemic. You come back here and all five regions are basically blurred together all the way up through January of 2020. Starting in January 2020, there was a little bit of a lull, but by the second quarter, the cities came out on the bottom. It's just the market dropped out of San Francisco. Maybe it's the type of business banking that's done there. It's more adapt for remote working, but it's clearly been impacted by the pandemic. The Central Valley is now on the top. So you have Central Valley having the most total appreciation, followed by Silicon Valley, followed by the North Bay, followed by the Central Coast, and the cities doing the absolute worst. And the range is basically from 30% to 80% appreciation since 2013. Here's the median sold price for the different areas. You can see the cities is just outpacing Silicon Valley. You can see we've had crossovers at different times, which was pretty noteworthy. But in long term, the order basically stays the same. Here's the estimated payments, and they're going to be in the same order because they all go through the same formula to get the payments from the price. And with that, we've been talking about week number 6 in Silicon Valley. I'm going to pause and see if I have any questions, and then I will do an introduction. Not seeing any unmuted mics.